We're going to take the next 20 minutes to facilitate a data dive. And I think I just want to start by saying this section is Deborah made this section, and so I will be doing some reading and perhaps miss some points. I'm also asking my facilitators if you follow along on the notes and I miss something, that would be excellent. But before you advance the slide, so I just want to say that data dive is that process where we make meaning from the analysis. So I don't think we can say it enough that analysis is different than meaning making. Anyone who's read a academic paper, there's the results often and the discussion. Now that's not the only form, that's a form that follows typical science as an approach to understand things. So, okay, so what is a data dive? So it's when a group of people collectively look at data and make meaning. Want to just raise again that some people think that data are objective, but they're not. And it's really important that when people all look at data together, they bring their own unique perspectives and interpret the data. And so by bringing all those different people into different perspectives, it's really clear not everyone's going to interpret it the same way. And in that is a richness that really allows for learning. So another just kind of really important, valuable thing of doing that is that I might have context, you might not, or this person might have way different context. And so it really allows everyone when they're making meaning to really bring in all that context to understand these numbers, right? Or these codes, right? And so if it's like, oh, the students, let's say, the students, when I looked at these journals, I coded out something around fear, and then I find out later the person's like, oh yeah, there was lightning strikes the night before and like it's really windy and cold. Like that's just important context to really understand what those data meant. So yeah, and then finally, especially has been used by OSU for data dives, is that it can really start to help inform decisions and action planning, and something that we've kind of scaffolded with the self-eval tools. And I promise we're going to get there at some point of like how do we use these data. That'll probably happen in season 2. But yeah, okay, so you can go to the next slide. So there's different protocols for how you can do a data dive, but we're going to use this what, so what, and now what. And so on the next slides, there'll be some kind of, we'll show the data and then there'll be a discussion and we'll follow this formula. Yeah. Anyways, I think, yeah, so the what do you observe in the data? The so what questions, what does it make you start to think about? And then now what? Then what do you do with it? Okay. So the first graph that we're going to look at shows outdoor school attendance rate estimates. I want to say that this is an imperfect calculation using the data that are available in order to help people understand the percentage of students who are going with their classes to outdoor school. In order to create the estimate, we have to use 2 sources. Oh, you can advance. Yeah, sorry. I'm glad I caught that. So first, every school reports to OSU at the end of the year and gives the number of students who attended outdoor school. So that becomes the numerator. To calculate attendance rate, we need a denominator that shows the number of students who should have attended if everyone went. And so for this, we take enrollment numbers from ODE, add them up to the, wait a second. Okay, they take enrollment numbers from ODE and add up the enrollment count for 5th or 6th grade as appropriate for each school. So you can get a base for, who could have gone. Again, these are estimates. And go to the next slide. Some more context on the estimates before we show you. So there's 2 limitations that we want to highlight before showing this graph. The enrollment numbers that are used in the denominator are from fall, and so they represent a snapshot of enrollment. And we know that enrollments change over the course of a year. So in many schools, these counts do not accurately reflect classroom enrollment at the time of outdoor school. Second, the number of students who participated in outdoor school is self-reported by schools, districts, and ESDs and may not always be accurate. I'll let you know that we've been working really hard with ODE in making some changes to our own reporting processes. So in another year and a half, we'll have much better data. Okay, so.
And quick shout out to Dan and Friends Outdoor School for all the advocacy that they did to make sure that ODE joined the party on this. So thanks, Dan.
Okay, so you can go to the next slide. Here are the data. Okay, so using the calculation method we have, here's the estimate for attendance. The 3 bars on the left are different because ODE made a change in how they count enrollment. So it's really hard to compare beforehand, but it's important still for you to see it. Meaning there would be bias in the instrument, right? How we collect those data if we didn't separate those two things out. Okay, so there's a bunch on this slide. Just give you a second to look it over and give 1 minute to see if anyone has any clarifying questions before we go to the next graph. I would strongly believe so, given the number. For the sake of time, I'm going to move us forward. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this graph is from another data source where we conducted a survey in the fall of 2023, and it shows the results from about 60 educators across the state who reported that outdoor school attendance was a challenge in their respective settings. The respondents included school and district level staff and teachers. And so we asked, related to outdoor school attendance, how much did these factors contribute to students not attending outdoor school? We had predetermined ideas around what typical factors were, and we got percentages for those. So I'll give you a minute and see if you have any clarifying questions. As I read this, it would be in general, but it was not specified as to what degree I understand. So, I can't answer specificity on that as I didn't design this survey, but what I think both of you are getting at are important biases in how we ask a question, right? And so one of the shortcomings in quantitative approaches or even predetermined themes upon qualitative stuff is that you set your parameters, right? Students, we didn't say student as a class or students an individual, where you set your parameters. The question is length of program. And there's no opportunity for, and so these things run through our whole, all the way to meaning making and dissemination, the decisions we make when we decide, how we're going to design the survey or how we're going to do the questionnaire or how we're going to analyze these data. And so a good case for having many people involved in your evaluation and getting many eyes on it. Like, well, hold on. Length of programming, what does that really mean, right? To me, it means this. To you, it means that. So great questions. I'm going to go to the next one to move us forward. Okay. So finally, from the same survey, there was also an open-ended item. And here the slide shows the 4 most common themes and a sample quote for each. And so this might help you understand the phenomenon of discomfort, anxiety, and homesickness, or family preferences and comfort, and what that really means for folks. Okay, and so there's more details on pages 5 and 6 of the PDF. So I'm going to move us into the process now so you can get a taste of what the process of a data dive looks like, so that if you wanted to do that with your staff or your team, that would be maybe a little easier for you. So
I Actually, Stephen, can I maybe go back to a point you made previously, which is this difference between analysis and meaning making, that Deborah, in preparing this report, analyzed data.
Yeah.
But what we're doing here together in a super truncated version, just sort of as an example with the time that we have, is making meaning of that. And so perhaps that's helpful in understanding the distinction between those two things.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Christy. That's good. So, okay. I'll state that if we had a bunch more time, we would do this in smaller groups, but we don't. We got 10 minutes to do this, so we can really give you some time to work on some stuff. So our goal is just to model what a data dive can look like. Okay, so let's start with what. I'm going to ask maybe just a couple of, we got to get through all three things. And so I'm going to ask if folks want to answer these questions. You keep it, we keep it like 2 or 3 minutes altogether for each section. So the first section is what. So what do you observe in the data that we looked at? What is interesting or surprising? One of the things I'll point, so I appreciated, Anne, you said that there was more concerned that there was a gender expansive student present than the safety of a gender expansive student. And that really speaks to a need to do some really serious interventions around safety and discrimination law. And so that would be my now what, is that I see that discrepancy between concern and worry for safety. You know, if we had more time, this would be a much more robust process. Just wanted to give you a primer, a little taste of it. So
Deborah has led our team in a couple of data dives, actually even using this same data brief. And they've been just really generative and brought up a lot of interesting conversations. And just, Stephen, maybe we give a plug for the thought that there's a new outcomes report being released super soon. That Stephen's been working on for the last 2 years. Is that right? And so we're hoping to do data dives with some of the data from that report, you know, where we would invite you and anyone else in the Outdoor School Network to come sort of help us make sense of all of those data that Stephen has worked so hard to collect. So that's something to keep an eye out for. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, and I'll add, so makes sense, but then as learning organizations, then what? To what end do we take those data and get better to meeting our, you know, our axiology, our values, our, you know, our real goals, and so in our case, you know, more equitable experience for all students, more inclusive and equitable. So.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. It's been really great to learn alongside you here. And you are always welcome to contact us. Here are our email addresses. We would just, be delighted to talk to you more about this and sort of just continue learning from each other. So thank you all. I'll stick around if anybody has questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here and for joining us in this series. And we'll see you over the summer or in season 2.